The melody floated through the transformed space, a barn reimagined as an elegant venue. Overhead beams sparkled with cascading lights and crystal fixtures. Ivory dresses spun gracefully, while tailored tuxedos brought refined sophistication to the rustic setting. Mason jars overflowing with wildflowers adorned each table, creating a canvas of pure joy. Yet within this perfect scene, one figure disrupted the harmony. A solitary man occupied a premium table, his weathered Stetson casting shadows across his face, surrounded by curious stares from strangers. Ethan Cross. The name once echoed through rodeo stadiums, heir to the legendary Timberline Ranch, the youngest rider to ever claim the national title, a symbol of determination and strength. Tonight, however, that past glory felt distant, buried beneath layers of quiet isolation that wrapped around him like a heavy coat. Ethan sat perfectly straight, his midnight suit impeccably fitted, his bolo tie fastened with a gleaming turquoise clasp. His stormy gray eyes swept across the crowd, but they held no warmth. They reflected a profound separation, as though he observed the celebration from across an impassable divide. He'd once commanded attention everywhere, a championship rider, a face on magazine covers throughout the Western Circuit. But after the incident 2 years prior, a devastating fall that crushed his leg and shattered his confidence, everything crumbled. His body eventually mended, but his soul remained fractured. His fiancée, Cassidy, walked away the moment doctors suggested he might never compete professionally again. Friendships dissolved. Endorsements vanished. Now, at this celebration, he was merely the isolated guest wearing a cowboy hat, an artifact from a vanished era. The bourbon before him sat untouched. The sharp laughter from dancing couples only twisted the knife deeper. Everyone comes to celebrate love, he thought with bitterness, his mouth forming a humorless smile. I came to mourn what I lost. Recollections flooded back. The custom ring that never found a finger. Cassidy departing in tears, saying, I can't stay with someone who's lost their spark. The ranch gate closing behind her. He remained solitary just like this moment. The music transitioned into a gentle ballad. Couples migrated toward the floor. Even the elderly rancher from the adjacent property took his wife's hand, eyes brimming with devotion. Light illuminated them all while shadows claimed Ethan. He reclined, pulling his hat lower to conceal his expression. Vulnerability gnawed at him. Once confident, now merely a phantom at the feast. Then different laughter reached his ears. Not the restrained politeness of affluent guests, but authentic, radiant, the kind that pierced through pretense. He tilted his head. At the furthest table, a man in a modest blue shirt attempted to settle an energetic young boy. The child draped a napkin over his head like a cape, pretending heroism, then erupted in giggles. The father laughed alongside him, unguarded and genuine. In that instant, Ethan felt unexpected relief in his chest. He hadn't realized how long his gaze remained fixed on them. The man wasn't flashy or commanding. No expensive cologne or designer labels. Yet that smile, that effortless warmth, suddenly silenced the chaos inside Ethan. For one brief moment, he forgot the whispers and pitying looks. Then the boy, perhaps 7 years old, pointed directly at him and exclaimed, Dad, look, that's a real cowboy. The entire hall seemed to pivot. Ethan froze. Usually such attention felt accusatory, but this time, instead of sympathy, the child's eyes radiated pure wonder. The father flushed, attempting to quiet his son. But then he laughed, shaking his head. His eyes found Ethan's, a warm, unwavering connection. And in that single second, Ethan felt less alone. In the hall's forgotten corner, a modest round table sat isolated, matching the people there perfectly. Lucas Bennett occupied that table. He smoothed his wavy chestnut hair and exhaled when he confirmed no familiar faces surrounded him. At 30, his vibrant eyes and gentle smile made him appear barely past his mid-20s. He'd received an invitation through tenuous connections. The bride had briefly been a client at the design firm where he worked. After the project concluded, contact faded, though the courteous invitation eventually arrived. He surveyed the room. Tables near the stage overflowed with guests. Lucas's table, positioned at the edge near the exit, felt like a declaration that he didn't truly belong. He inhaled deeply, reminding himself, "Come on, Bennett, you're here to offer congratulations. Let Oliver enjoy some dessert and head home." Beside him, his 7-year-old son Oliver climbed into his chair, his brilliant green eyes absorbing every detail. "Wow, Dad, this looks like something from a storybook. Those lights are like fireflies." Lucas smiled. "Sure, but remember to stay seated. We're guests, not the main attraction." Oliver rested his chin on his palm. "I think I could be a secret superhero. I'll protect the bride from villains." "What villains?" Lucas raised an eyebrow. "The ones who won't let her have wedding cake," Oliver replied seriously, making Lucas laugh so hard he nearly choked on his water. That was Lucas's nature. Life hadn't been gentle, balancing work, expenses, and raising Oliver alone after his partner departed. But he'd preserved his light-hearted spirit and humor. While Lucas worried about next month's bills, Oliver suddenly dropped his spoon and pointed toward the VIP section. "Dad, look, that's a real cowboy." Lucas glanced up. In the ballroom's center, a man sat motionless, a dark Stetson obscuring his features. A black suit fit perfectly across broad shoulders. He wasn't smiling. His gray eyes, like winter skies, stared into nothing. Lucas's heart stuttered. Something about his posture created an ache in his chest. Not pity, but recognition. For years, Lucas had grown accustomed to being apart, friends vanishing after he chose to raise Oliver alone when his father disappeared. Now, at this joyful celebration, he remained at the furthest table, quietly present with his son. Their eyes met for just a heartbeat, but it felt as though Lucas could see straight through him. "Dad, why isn't anyone sitting with him?" Oliver tilted his head innocently. "Maybe he prefers solitude," Lucas whispered. "But he looks sad," Oliver insisted. "I bet he needs a dance partner." Lucas nervously laughed, shaking his head. But the boy continued staring, his wide eyes filled with curiosity adults had abandoned long ago. Lucas turned away, focusing on his plate. Yet internally he felt unsettled. The image of that man lingered. Why did someone who appeared to possess everything seem so utterly isolated? Why did his eyes mirror Lucas on the day his ex packed his belongings, leaving him standing alone in the nursery? The waltz shifted into lively swing music. The MC invited everyone to the floor. Joy radiated everywhere except at the furthest table and the VIP section. Both remained silent. Lucas glanced at his son. Oliver clapped along with the rhythm, but his attention kept returning to the man in the cowboy hat. He whispered, "Dad, dancing doesn't need to be with a girl. You just need someone willing to dance with you." The innocence of those words shook Lucas's heart. He turned his head. The man remained motionless, hat pulled low, as if the world held no space for him. A strange impulse rose within Lucas. Not sympathy, but a mischievous, bold thought. He sipped his wine, feeling warmth spread across his face, his heart racing as if preparing for something reckless. Oliver leaned closer. "Dad, I bet he'll smile if you talk to him." Lucas sighed, biting his lip. An internal voice cautioned, "Bennett, don't be foolish. He's a stranger, a cowboy at an elegant wedding." But another voice spoke louder. "So what? A smile costs nothing. And maybe it could rescue someone." Lucas blinked, looked at his son, then at the man again. Fate had just written him into the story. The music transformed into a tender ballad. At the VIP table, Ethan Cross remained still. Nobody approached. There were stolen glances, abundant whispers, but not a single person dared come near. He'd grown accustomed to it. For 2 years, silence had been his sole companion. A bitter thought emerged. A champion who can't even secure a dance partner. Pathetic. He considered leaving early. At the last table, Lucas Bennett continued watching him. His heart raced. Oliver tilted his head and whispered, "Dad, I think he needs a friend. Why don't you be his friend?" Lucas laughed. Sweetheart, I don't know him. But do you know anyone else here? Oliver asked innocently. The question caught him unprepared. True, in this glittering room he was just as alone as the cowboy. A reckless thought flashed through his mind. Before he could reconsider, Lucas set down his glass and inhaled deeply. Well, one bold move won't destroy me. He stood, crossing between tables, his dress shoes tapping softly against wooden floors. Curious eyes tracked his movement. Ethan noticed the approaching figure. He raised an eyebrow. Familiar scenarios ran through his thoughts. This person would offer sympathy or inquire about his rodeo career. He'd grown weary of both. But Lucas stopped before him, leaned slightly forward, and smiled. His brown eyes sparkled with playful defiance. Then, in a gentle yet confident voice, he asked, "Would you like to be my date tonight?" The entire ballroom seemed to silence. Ethan froze. He thought he'd misunderstood. A date? This kind-eyed man with the radiant smile was asking him that right here, before a crowd that treated him like a museum exhibit. He searched those eyes for pity but found none. Only genuine brightness and playful challenge. "You're joking, right?" he muttered, voice low and rough. Lucas chuckled, tilting his head. "Maybe. But if you refuse, you'll ruin the best entrance I've made all night." Silence stretched. Then the unthinkable occurred. Ethan laughed. The sound was rough, low, awkward, as if he'd forgotten he still could. How long had it been? A year? He couldn't recall. The ballroom seemed to hold its breath. Whispers erupted. "Who is he? Oh my God! Is this pity? But did you see that?" He actually laughed. Ethan set his bourbon down. A sudden decision ignited within him. He looked up, his lips curving faintly. "All right then, Mr. Lucas," he answered quickly, his smile radiant. "Lucas Bennett. And tonight you're my date," Ethan finished, a hint of his old confidence returning. He stood, his 6-foot frame casting an impressive shadow even without the championship belt. "Shall we?" The whispers erupted into commotion. Shocked stares followed as the man from the last table led the famous cowboy from the shadows toward the illuminated dance floor. Ethan walked silently, letting Lucas guide him. Yet his heartbeat had transformed, not because of the music, but because for the first time in months, he no longer felt utterly alone. He glanced over and caught Lucas's radiant expression under the lights. A small spark found its way into his hardened heart. Perhaps tonight would be different from all the others. Lively music filled the hall. At its center, Lucas and Ethan commanded every gaze. Some whispered, others curious, even mocking. But Lucas didn't care. He held his head high, his smile brilliant as he guided Ethan into the rhythm. "Ready, Mr. Cross?" he murmured just loud enough to hear. Ethan arched a brow. "Ready to be stared at like livestock at auction?" "No." Lucas chuckled, his eyes sparkling. "Ready to be the star of this dance floor." Ethan shook his head with a faint, helpless smile. He didn't understand why he'd let this man pull him into this madness. But his heart hadn't beat this fast in ages. The music surged. Lucas spun them in a circle, his movements surprisingly elegant. The crowd gasped. Ethan's stance was rigid at first, a man unaccustomed to joy. "Are you always this bold?" he asked, voice a low rumble. "Only when a handsome cowboy looks like he needs rescuing," Lucas teased, grinning mischievously. He led them through the steps, forward, back, a gentle spin. Ethan felt his body moving in rhythm, not passively, but as part of the dance itself. The sensation was foreign. For months, he'd stood immobile, observing life from the sidelines. But now, with Lucas's hand on his back, he was inside the dance itself. Laughter broke out. Children cheered. Adults, after a moment of surprise, began clapping along. Not pity anymore, but delighted amazement. "See," Lucas whispered, leaning closer. "You can dance. You just needed the right partner." Their eyes locked. Warmth pierced through the ice that had imprisoned Ethan's heart for years. Then a high-pitched voice rang out. "Dad, I want to dance too." Oliver darted from the last table straight into the circle, his napkin cape still tied around his neck. "Hey, Mr. Cowboy, let me dance with you." Ethan burst into genuine laughter, full and deep, shaking his chest. "And what am I supposed to do, kiddo?" "Easy," Oliver announced solemnly, taking Ethan's other hand. "I'll be your other dance partner. We can be a team." The ballroom erupted in laughter. Lucas pretended to sigh dramatically, but his eyes brimmed with joy. "All right then, gentlemen, let's show the world how we dance." And so, beneath the rustic lights, an unforgettable scene unfolded. A cowboy who'd lost his way, a kind man filled with light, and a lively 7-year-old boy transforming the dance floor into their stage. Lucas led. Oliver added enthusiastic hops, and Ethan laughed without stopping. Applause thundered. The whispers of pity dissolved, replaced by admiration. In that moment, Ethan realized something. Lucas wasn't viewing him as a fallen champion, not as someone abandoned. In his eyes, he was simply a man who could laugh, who could live, who could bring joy to a child. The music ended on a long, lingering chord. Lucas dipped in a playful bow. Oliver spread his arms wide and shouted, "Tada!" The ballroom exploded in applause. Ethan looked around, a genuine smile on his face, his eyes lit with something he didn't recognize: happiness. He turned to Lucas and whispered, "Thank you. It's been so long since I felt alive." Lucas met his gaze, warm and tender. "You're not just alive, Ethan. You're shining." After the final round of applause, the dance floor cleared. Lucas bent down and whispered to Oliver, "Want to get some fresh air, superhero?" The boy nodded, clutching a cupcake. Lucas turned to Ethan. "Would you like to step outside to the garden? There are string lights and no whispering people." Ethan's lips curved into a rare smile. "Sounds like heaven." A side door opened onto a stone path leading to a small garden. Golden string lights draped from tree branches, scattering soft light across the grass. From afar, laughter and clinking glasses still echoed. But here, everything felt gentler. Lucas walked slowly, letting quiet settle between them. Oliver darted back and forth, chasing fireflies. They stopped by a wooden bench. Lucas sat down while Ethan leaned against a thick oak tree, crossing his arms. "Thank you for the dance," he said first, his voice low and warm. "You're welcome. I just pulled you into the party you deserve to be part of," Lucas replied, his brown eyes suddenly serious. "It's hard when everyone looks at you like a sad story." Ethan stayed quiet for a moment. "After the accident," he began, "I suddenly became someone else in everyone's eyes. First, it was the doctors talking about a career-ending injury. Then my fiancée. She said she was sorry, that she wasn't strong enough for a comeback that might never happen. She left quickly, as if my failure might be contagious." The laughter from the hall faded. Lucas just listened. Ethan drew in a breath. "Friends?" At first, they texted, "You okay, man?" Then it went quiet. "I guess it makes sense. I was the one winning, the one they saw at the top. When I couldn't climb anymore, maybe they didn't know where to stand in my life either." He gave a short, tired laugh. "So the ranch became the only place I went. The smell of horse feed, the physical therapy, the same exercises over and over. I once commanded an arena of thousands, yet I had to relearn how to walk without a limp." Lucas's throat tightened. Softly, he said, "But you didn't give up." Ethan's lips curved faintly. "Some days I wanted to, but tonight." He paused, glancing at Oliver, who was carefully splitting his cupcake. "Tonight feels different. It feels like a party only really begins when you decide to stay." Lucas chuckled softly. "And I learned a quiet architect can ask it," he whispered. "For the first time in 2 years, I'm not afraid to go back inside. Because now I know someone will look at me and see a man, not a tragedy." "Let's go back in," Lucas said gently but firmly. "We've stood outside long enough." He paused, glancing at Ethan, then smiled. "Tonight, I don't plan to sit alone at a table again." Oliver ran ahead, waving his empty cupcake wrapper. Lucas walked beside Ethan, their shoulders occasionally brushing. A deep connection had taken root, not through vows, but through their shared choice to return to the bright room. This time, neither would leave the other behind.